A mother combed her children's hair. She dressed them in clean white nightgowns. It was May 1st, 1945. 6 children, ages 4 to 12. Helga, Hildegard, Helmut, Holdina, Hedvig, Heidrun. She prepared warm cocoa. She took the sleeping pills. She crushed them into powder. She stirred the powder into the mugs. The children drank. They fell asleep. This execution became the final act of a political ideology she had built over a decade. The second phase began. She approached the beds. She held glass capsules of potassium cyanide. Cyanide blocks cellular respiration. It triggers death through intracellular asphyxiation within minutes. At the first bed, she leaned over the sleeping child. She placed the capsule between the teeth. She applied pressure to the jaw. She crushed the glass. The woman responsible for the cyanide administration was Johanna Maria Magdalena Ritschl. She became the highly visible matriarch for the specific political party that methodically exterminated her own Jewish stepfather inside a concentration camp. Her ideological commitment required the deliberate erasure of her familial history to align with National Socialist racial directives. She was born on November 11, 1901. Following her parents' divorce, her mother married a Jewish businessman named Richard Friedlander. He provided significant financial stability during her formative years. This domestic arrangement contradicted the ideological framework she later promoted across the German state. When the state initiated systematic detentions, her prominent political status offered zero protection for him. The government she publicly championed orchestrated his arrest and subsequent deportation without any documented intervention on her part. Richard Friedlander perished inside the Buchenwald concentration camp in 1939. 1921 marked the exact beginning of her financial independence. Before encountering the party elite, she secured substantial capital through German industrialist Gunther Quandt. He was a major battery manufacturer twice her age. They had one son, Harold. The marriage dissolved rapidly. She uncovered Quandt's old compromising letters. The aged paper became a precise instrument of leverage during the divorce proceedings, enabling her to negotiate a highly lucrative financial settlement. The payout funded her autonomy. By 1930, she officially joined the NSDAP. She began attending political rallies to analyze the emerging hierarchy of the party apparatus. Hitler became her target. Adolf Hitler signed the marriage certificate himself. Her private devotion to the leader shaped the marriage architecture. The ink dried. Flashes blinded them. It was December 1931. Yet publicly, she married Joseph Goebbels. They used her. The arrangement served the state. The Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda took control. They needed symbols. The regime lacked a first lady. She filled it. They forged an official standard of Aryan motherhood. Goebbels ordered the mass production of portraits. To establish this political facade, the state apparatus distributed millions of glossy photographs across the entire Reich. 2 documented affairs required the Chancellor's personal intervention. The staged public photographs of 1938 concealed a series of mutual infidelities. Magda pursued relationships with Kurt Lüdecke in 1933 and Karl Hanke in 1938. Joseph maintained multiple mistresses. Arguments escalated. Hitler stepped in. He ordered the couple to stay together. The regime required an unbroken facade. The physical isolation started as the Soviet forces approached. On April 22, 1945, Magda initiated the descent. She moved all 6 children underground. They relocated into the Führerbunker. Engineers originally designed this facility as a temporary air raid shelter, not a permanent residential complex. The space lacked basic living infrastructure. The family vanished from public view. They entered a sealed concrete chamber connected to the lower levels beneath the chancellery. 8 meters of concrete overhead. Why bring 6 children into a combat zone? The answer lies in a farewell letter mailed to North Africa. Prosecutors would read this exact document aloud during the Nuremberg tribunals. The text addressed to Harold established the official motive. Harold was 23 years old. He sat inside a British prisoner of war facility in Benghazi, Libya. He survived. He returned home. He inherited his biological father's industrial empire. Harold eventually became one of post-war Germany's wealthiest men. His 6 half-siblings stayed underground. The mother wrote that the coming world held no value. The plan was strictly bureaucratic. It was never emotional. April 30th. The Chancellor shot himself. Protocol shifted. The command structure collapsed. May 1st. The execution sequence commenced. Magda initiated the final phase. She finished drafting the last page. She summoned immediate assistance. SS Medical Officer Helmut Kuntz prepared the required chemical compound. The concrete corridors smelled sharply of surgical spirits. Radio operator Rokas Mish tracked the physical movements nearby. He later testified to the exact chronology of events. The procedure required precise sequential steps. First came the heavy sedative. It required complete dissolution. The children needed a laced cocoa drink. Everything remained strictly methodical. The mother personally collected the heavy sleeping medication directly from the hands of the military officer. Soviet military doctors documented severe hematomas across a young girl's jawline. The autopsy destroyed the propaganda of a peaceful passing. 12-year-old Helga fought back. Oral cyanide ingestion typically triggers violent physiological convulsions, which explains the severe blunt force trauma around her mouth and jaw. She woke up. The other 5 bodies showed no defensive injuries. Nightgowns remained pristine. Silk ribbons stayed tied in the girl's hair. The parents then ascended into the Reich Chancellery garden. Both ingested lethal doses. An adjutant shot Joseph again. Guards poured gasoline over them. A sharp smell of unburnt petrol lingered over the crater on May 2nd. Soviet units recovered the carbonized facial structures of both adults. The corpses identified in 1945 existed physically until 1970. The cranial and skeletal fragments recovered on May 2nd became a logistical liability for the Soviet administration. Moscow anticipated that any marked grave would evolve into a pilgrimage site for neo-Nazi sympathizers. For 25 years, Soviet state security personnel conducted clandestine exhumations of the wooden crates. The crates held the remains. The cycle finally stopped. KGB Director Yuri Andropov officially authorized Operation Archive to initiate the final disposal sequence. Operatives crushed the bones and incinerated the fragments inside a secure military facility located in Magdeburg. Marguerite Himmler survived the war and endured standard interrogations while the Goebbels lineage faced formal erasure. Nothing remained. Operatives released the gray ash directly onto the flowing current of the Biederitz River.